I did MS. I mean,
We are now live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Personnel Commission meeting. And we are in open session. And according to the governor, we are doing this via Ukiah Unified's YouTube. And if there's anybody who has to give us some public comment for things that aren't on the agenda or otherwise, there are forms to do that online. At this time, I'd like to do the roll call, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Kathy James,
Here.
Commissioner Susan Scher,
here.
and Commissioner Martha Giacomini.
She's here. Okay. We have proof of life somewhere on the screen.
I think we lost Martha.
Oh, we did. She just,
Okay, do we know where she's at? She's somewhere in space.
Well, maybe she can call in.
Okay. I'll continue. We know that she's somewhere in here. And so we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance right now. Maybe Lori can lead that for us.
Oh, there she is.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the
States of
States of
America
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
justice for all. Thank you. Okay. At this time, commissioners, I don't think my best to work. No, you don't. I would like to, let me get it back up here. I need approval of today's agenda, please. I'll need a motion and a second.
I move to approve today's agenda.
Okay, and do I have a second? I'll second that.
Unmute.
Martha's here. She's muted. She's,
Okay,
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, great. I have a motion and a second to approve today's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next on our agenda is number 5, and it's called our organization updates. And this is an opportunity for the Personnel Commission, the District Administration, or CSEA, to make a brief announcement, a report, or his or her own activities, or to ask questions. Is anybody? No? Okay. Next is number 6, and this is our community input part of our agenda. Members of the audience are welcome to address the commission regarding items that are not on today's agenda, and there is a public comment form for them to fill out if they wish to do so. Do we have any of those, Marty?
we do not.
Okay, so moving right along, I need a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda, which includes minutes, our financial, monthly financial activity, and it includes reviewing items that the board has approved. So I will need a motion and a second for that.
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I would like to make one comment. I think it's okay to do, even though we've already voted. And looking at our financial activity, this time of the year, we've usually taken a chunk out of our budget, and I've noticed that we haven't used a lot of projected monies. So I just thought that's interesting.
Working remotely, our expenses went down tremendously. And then when we first went into self-quarantine or were shut down, we put we put a freeze on the hiring. So again, we didn't have all that processing and paperwork and materials that we would normally use, advertising, all of that. So so yeah, I mean, significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you for watching the board there. Compliments. Okay, so I think at this time we have our reports, and first up would be Nicole Kinsler, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Nicole?
So the big news since our last meeting is that we have reopened with the hybrid preschool through sixth grade. Sixth graders made it onto campus last week, so that's very exciting. I'm sorry, not last week, this week, and then our younger grades. So we are very excited to have them back on our campuses. It's really kind of changed the energy in the district to have students around again. So that's fantastic. Part of our COVID safety plan, which our COVID safety plan was submitted to public health for review, and then also submitted to the state, and our plan was accepted by the state. Part of our plan has involved testing of students and employees. So we've really learned a lot about how to do COVID tests. We started testing employees last week. One of the issues that we have is that we're a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to testing on site. And so that means that some of the systems that need to be in place have not really been in place. And I'm not talking about for our district, I'm just talking about in general. And one big thing that needs to be in place is having a testing platform. And that is something that, that's like the technological side, the software that would be used to track the test results and to report the test results and to gather consent from employees or parents. So we have held off on testing students until we get the platform in place, because there's quite a lot of data that gets collected and reported to public health. And we just didn't feel like it was a good idea to start trying to collect data from parents until we got that platform in place. From the staff that we've collected data from and that has done testing, they're going to have to give consent again, but that'll be fine. We've done probably about 150 tests overall. That's not necessarily 150 employees though. The test that we're doing is called Binax Now. It's an antigen test, and it is recommended that it is given twice a week. So our plan has been to have testing for employees twice a week. However, for students, our plan is to only test them once a week. And that's because they are under the hybrid, they're on campus a Monday, a Tuesday, or a Thursday and Friday. And it is not recommended that they test on 2 days that are back to back. So, our tests for them will be once a week. So we have trained we've trained over 40 people in our district to do the COVID testing. That's been an exciting process. And like I said, we've got about 40 people that are trained that are doing the testing now. So they're doing some really, really great work. This has been facilitated by the MOU that we signed with CSEA in July or August. And one of the important things in that MOU was that people can work out of class if it was to address our COVID-19 needs. And so most of the people that are doing the testing are food service employees. Their days are not entirely full. So they seemed a logical group to draw from because they weren't necessarily working full days or every day. So we have trained, not all of them, but a good number of them have been trained so far. The other thing that was in that MOU was that if somebody is asked to do something that is out of class and at a higher class than what they're normally paid at, that they get paid the difference between that higher class and their current rate of pay. And so for this endeavor, we thought that it seemed appropriate that this would be on par with what a health assistant would do. So some of our food service employees get paid at a lower rate than a health assistant. And so what we've told them is that during the time that you're doing the testing, including the time that you're training to do the testing, that they should turn in timesheets indicating that that's time that they would get paid out of class pay. So it's not a big change, but it is a little something, and it does recognize that they are doing something a little bit out of the ordinary for their job and at a higher rate of pay. So there are lots of temporary remedies that districts are doing to address what we hope is a temporary situation, although it's a situation that's gone on longer than we had ever hoped, but it's still temporary. We will not always have to function under these circumstances. But the testing, I would say, is going very, very well. The employees that have been trained have all indicated that they feel ready and are ready to do the test. And part of their training is that they come to a testing site and they do the test. So we have lots of people in the district service center who have been trained. And so part of their job has been to go to the testing sites once the schools do the testing at their own site, so that they have a district person to assist to get them going. And then if they feel like they're good to go, then that district person doesn't need to go to the next test day. But if they still want additional support, then they have that additional support. So that honestly has been the main thing that we've been working on, and our staff has really stepped up and done a great job.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And we are ahead of the game on so many fronts. We have over 76% of our staff has been vaccinated. I haven't double checked, but I would say we're probably at about 98% of those who want to be vaccinated have been vaccinated. Any who have not been able to be vaccinated, it was not because they didn't have a vaccination offered to them. It was because they had a conflict or something like that. So we are really in a good position to be open right now. And some people are still quite nervous, but our COVID safety plan was developed with the presumption that no one would be vaccinated. So the fact that we have vaccinations really adds that extra layer of safety. But we have not, it doesn't change any of the safeguards that we have in place right now. So we're still following those. So anyway, this is a really exciting time as we get to one step closer to being at a normal level by having students back on campus. It requires that we do testing of employees, and that's just fine.
Great.
Nicole, I have two quick questions. Are these the tests that you get the results from very quickly?
Yeah, it takes 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
Wow.
great.
Great. And I'm just curious, were the kids going crazy to be back at school? Thrilled?
I think the biggest, kids have been super excited. Some of our younger kids went home and told one kid in particular went home and told his parent, this was the best day of my life.
Oh, I saw that in
I
Deb's
saw that.
column. That
Yes.
was so sweet.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. One of the first day of school, every August is always a hectic time. The first week really is a very hectic time. One of the big things is the drop off and pickup, getting that figured out, because we don't have as many people that are able to ride the bus, but we do have fewer students. But nonetheless, we just have a lot of cars, and the parents are not able to walk their kids to class or any of that. So that's been something that's required quite a lot of time on our school sites to help try to keep that running smoothly.
And I hope the parents aren't idling their cars while they're waiting for the kids to get out.
I really don't know.
I have a question. Even though all the staff has been vaccinated, they're still being tested. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Because,
Because that's in our plan, and we have not been told that we should alter our plan based on whether or not they're vaccinated. And the testing is 100% optional. We do have two types of tests going on. The antigen test, which is the rapid result, 15 minutes, and it's recommended that people take it twice a week. The other test that we have is a test kit that gets mailed home to every employee. This is
Oh,
I think this is
wonderful.
a PCR test, I want to call it. And that's something that people swab their nose at home. They put it in the mail. It gets mailed out in FedEx the following day. And in most cases, it takes about 2 to 3 days to get the results of those tests. So that was something that is through our healthcare. So that goes to anyone who is on our benefits. So people that don't have our insurance aren't receiving that test. And people have said, well, do I need to be doing the test? The testing is not required of anyone at this point. And so it's all 100% optional. But our plan has, as has been required, that we have a testing plan and that we implement the testing plan. While it may be optional for employees and students to test, it is not optional for us to have a testing plan. We have to have a testing plan if we're opening under these circumstances. And we, as you know, Ukiah Unified really wanted to get schools open and get students back into schools. And the only way we could do that was by getting this testing. So we are doing it.
My,
And I had one other question for the
No.
food service workers when they're working out of class. Get the pay. Usually when you're working out of class, you have to work so many days and then you gain that pay. So is it available to them as soon as they do that job, they're just paid that amount?
You broke up, but I
Was
think
that the MOU?
I think what you're asking is what you said was that normally to be paid out of class, you have to be working out of class for a certain number of consecutive days. And your question is, do they get that out of class pay immediately? And yes, they get it immediately. We've relied upon negotiations and this is not something that's in the merit or in the PC rules and regs. This is based off of what was negotiated with CSEA. So we haven't altered the PC rules and regs, but we have negotiated some different applications.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want to share my 8-year-old granddaughter, who's a 3rd grader this year, was very apprehensive about going back. And the first thing she said when she got in the car after, yesterday, she told her mom, I had the greatest day. So it went well, and she's loving it. I'm so excited for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next report would be Marty's report, our director's report. And I'm gonna move, so go right ahead.
I'll keep it very brief. We have been working to schedule interviews this week. We currently have 9 open positions. And so Lori has been making phone calls and we've been communicating with administrators and staff to schedule interviews. We have 4 interviews scheduled over the next week or so. And we have filled 80 positions so far this year. So while it doesn't rate as in years past, I think considering COVID and everything, all the adjustments that we've made this year, I'm pretty excited about that.
That's great. Okay. Marty shared with me that the kinds of things they're doing, they're buying pens. You want to share that with the?
Yeah, as part of the safety plan, we were reviewing the safety plan, and it was really important about not sharing materials or limiting sharing materials and cleaning your space. And so we were trying to think, how do we deal with people coming from the outside to fill out paperwork or to take exams? And so to increase our advertising, we purchased pens and pencils that have the personnel commission logo on them so that we could give them out as advertisement, eliminating, contamination through sharing materials, etc.
Right, and then you also shared that when Lori does a test, you lock it up in a Ziploc bag.
We do. When a person is given an exam, after the exam, the materials are put into a Ziploc bag and sealed and secured, separate from the rest of the testing materials for a specific amount of time, just to eliminate any potential cross-contamination or contamination for the next person who may need to use the materials.
Okay, good. Yeah, so everybody is doing so much to protect everyone else, and it's so appreciated. I need to have that because my agenda's on there.
You never sent me the Layoffs thing, so I can't send it to
Okay.
you.
All
I
right.
have a question too. On the PC office openings, Marty, and about test drive for multiple positions in multiple locations for subbing applicants. How is that working? I found that very interesting.
I'm sorry, I missed that part.
In your PC office, you mentioned about saying that the applicants are, you mentioned you called it an opportunity to test drive. And I was wondering how
We
that came
have-
about. I thought that's great.
Well, we just all of a sudden had a desperate need for classified subs. So I thought, rather than posting all these different and people getting frustrated with having to apply, I thought I'm just going to put it out there as classified subs. And then once they can share that with us, then we will communicate back with them to see what are their interests, what is their experience, so that we can do a good fit and then get them processed and over to HR for our district sub coordinator specialist to have some extra people to fill in for, I mean, and we have everything, every job class that we have: transportation, maintenance operations, secretarial, and then instructional support, a big push for custodians, secretaries, clerks. So it's been kind of interesting, because then when people send in their applications, I can say, I know you applied for this, but have you thought about that? And it's a great opportunity for them to try different things that they may not have even thought about.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
Great.
Yeah, that's really good.
any other comments or questions before we move on to our discussion action items? Okay, so our first couple items are second reading of policies that has looked over and tried to bring up to date. Now, our first one is changes to our PC Rule 410.2-1, order precedence.
And this was just clarifying that reemployment lists, those that have been laid off for a lack of work or lack of funds, take priority over anyone coming back because they've exhausted all of their leave. So like a 39-month rehire list.
Okay. We went over this our last meeting, so if
Right,
everybody's
right.
good with that, I need a motion and a second.
I move to approve the revisions of PC Rule 410.2-1, order of precedence.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve PC Rule 410.2- order of precedence. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. This next one is also an action item and one that we've reviewed. It's PC Rule 412.1, and it's called length of probationary period.
This came about with the change in ed code as far as the length of time a person has to work under paid service in order to attain seniority or to pass their probationary period. But what was brought to our attention is that supervisors are not always in the same classification as administrators, even though there are administrators that are supervisors. So to clarify, we eliminated the word supervisor and then left in those positions that included supervisor in their title in the list of administrative positions that were covered under the 130-day paid service probationary period. We also eliminated a lot of superfluous language that got a little bit convoluted and confusing and just simplified it to its basic terms.
It also eliminates some language that was actually not consistent with what is law, and that is that it previously stated that employees had to be in their regular position for it to count toward probation, so they couldn't be in a limited term. So for example, somebody working during the summer, that wouldn't count toward their probation, and that's actually not legal. If they're a bus driver during the regular school year and then they continue to work during the summer, then that summer work counts toward their probationary period. So this is also to clean it up to get consistent with law, which is what our practice has been. We're practicing this in the legal capacity, but the PC rules needed to be adjusted.
Okay. So I need a motion and a second to approve this.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed changes to PC Rule 2.1 probationary period.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve PC rule and the changes to it for 12.1 length of probationary period. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Our next proposed changes is a discussion. It's our first reading, and it's to Rule 415.1, and that's called Notice of Layoff.
So this, again, is a review of our policies and just trying to bring them up to date and in line with ed code. And it is not legal to negotiate a shorter or period of time for the amount of time that notice has to be given. So it was just clarifying and eliminating that language in there that was an option, because it truly isn't.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I just remember in years past when there was like a budget shortage. I remember, I think it was in probably March, that was happening for the following school year. If that was going to happen, we knew that there was so many days before we all needed to be,
Right.
which position might be affected. So,
Right.
Yeah, that was that March 15th date, right?
I don't remember exactly.
March 15th applies to certificated. I think what happened was about 4 or 5 years ago, the timeline for layoffs for classified employees changed to 60 days. And so I think it used to be that you could give 30 days, you can negotiate a 30-day notification.
Right.
But the law changed and you can't do that. Law requires that there be a 60-day notification to the employee of any sort of layoff.
Okay. All right. Susan, any comments or questions? Okay. All right. So next time we'll be back for second reading. Next on the agenda is 9.4, and it addresses the Rule 419.3-1, and it's called Notice of Intention to Recommend disciplinary action.
Right, and again, this comes just for clarification purposes, that notice has to be within 10 days of the disciplinary action. And all of these are in Ed Code, they're in the board bylaws. So it's just making sure that all of our rules are consistent throughout.
Hey, Marty, was this a change that legal counsel said we should make?
Yes.
So I had some confusion about this one. If I'm reading it right, then the notice must be sent within 10 days of the action. Wouldn't it be the other way around? Wouldn't the notice come first and then the action?
Within 10 days of the disciplinary
Why would
action.
you would discipline someone and then within 10 days you would give them a notice that you are disciplining them?
I was actually confused by it too, because
Oh, the Scully thing.
maybe
No,
it's-
that's, yeah, it's after the Scully, it's just, so when a decision is made to discipline, you have to send written notice of that disciplinary action within 10 days of that determination to their last known address.
So maybe we should say that just for clarity.
Well, it has it in there, to their
Yeah.
last known
Well, the thing-
address on file.
What I found confusing though, Marty, when you say the notice of intention, is that just amongst the managers or the administration? Has the employee actually been notified that they're going to be disciplined?
Yes, there's the Scully rules and there's all the processes and procedures. I don't like the title of this, the notice of intention of recommended discipline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
again-
will see if there's maybe a better title, because it leads, you're right, it leads you to believe that.
Marty, I think the title actually might be okay. I think it's really the context. And I'm sorry that I meant to look at this in advance and I didn't, because I think I think that in context of the other PC rules, it becomes clear where this falls. But by
Right.
itself, it kind of feels like, wait a minute, they just get 10 days and they have to figure
Yeah.
stuff out. And that's really not how it works. So I
Mhm.
think that maybe we should look at it in context at the next meeting, that it might make more sense.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay. So then would it become the first reading again?
It could be a second reading, but it doesn't mean that you have to take action on it. If you haven't come to a consensus that you want to adopt the language, then you can have it brought back
Brought
again.
back. Okay,
So if it does make sense, we can vote on it.
Yes.
I get it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any more on this one?
No, I
Okay.
don't think,
No. Okay. So 9.5 is a discussion of the Personnel Commission Annual Report for 2020. And that was included in the email, I believe.
Correct. So this
Mhm.
got added after the original agenda was published. But it should be included in your packets or sent to you in an email. Again, it was really interesting reflecting on the 2019-20 year, because we were so heavily impacted with COVID and restrictions and closing of schools and how we operate. It was really interesting to look at the statistics and the information. Next year, I would really like to do a 3-year comparison so we can look at that more closely, look at those numbers. So unfortunately, with shelter in place and schools going to distance learning, we didn't have back to school night or open house in the normal, the way that we have done in the years past. So we didn't get those opportunities to be out and taking photos with staff, and we were all trying to avoid each other. So we were kind of limited on photos that we could put in here, but we did provide a little bit of information and the budget information that, again, it just, our expenses went down.
So you used our photos instead to fill
I
it
did.
out.
I remember taking that. It must have been somewhere though.
Yeah, it's on our PC webpage. And so I went in and put when, you guys were appointed and when your term expires and what position, what role you fill. And so it was interesting going through all that.
Yeah, it must have been a picture from 2019.
It was before Marty.
Yeah,
Oh,
wow.
that's why we all look younger, huh?
We were younger. Oh, well.
Marty, I just
Okay.
have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are all these, I'm looking at the numbers on page, oh, the page that says our purpose.
Yes.
So these advanced placements, are they actually for a year?
Yes.
So it's only like 30 something. That seems so low. I would have guessed we did a lot more than that.
Yeah. Well, again, COVID just really took an impact. We didn't have all the hirings that we normally would. So I guess I went through all of our minutes and made sure I recounted them because I thought that can't be right. So that's why it would be interesting to look at a 3-year comparison.
Right, right. I see.
But I think COVID has impacted that.
Yeah. I mean, I look at applicants, 91 applicants. I mean, that does, normally we already have 200 and some odd applicants. So that we've been working on this year. So it's really kind of interesting.
Well, if you think about it, some of our agendas from last, we have 8, 10, 11.
Yeah.
This time we have 2.
Yeah, or 5,
We had 5.
The most that I saw was like 5 at one time.
I think that was last month, maybe.
Yeah.
Or 2 times ago. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay. Anything else on that?
Well, considering the restraints you were under, it looks very good.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. 9.6 on our agenda is a proposed change to the education experience / other qualifications and or level of the technology specialist job description.
We had a technology specialist position come open and we were having a very hard time recruiting qualified applicants, especially when the position requires 5 years of experience. And so Jason contacted me about maybe modifying it and updating it. So we looked at possible revisions. And as long as we were revising it, we thought, well, we'll put it in line with how we're doing the other job descriptions as far as under the general direction of the superintendent or designee. We're trying to get that consistent with all of our job descriptions.
And one thing about this is that the only thing that the Personnel Commission decides is the education experience and then the leveling. This has not gone to the board because really the only thing in the job description is exactly what Marty just described, is changing that it's, rather than saying under the supervision of the technology supervisor, it's saying under the supervision of the superintendent or designee. And that is what we're putting in all of our, as we revise job descriptions. So this hasn't gone to the board. I don't think it has to go to the board because it's almost like it's not really changing anything. It's just rephrasing it.
No, and it's specific to the education and experience. So the 5 years of increasing responsible experience is now preferred. So obviously, if someone comes to us with, 5 years of experience, they're going to get more preferential points on their ranking than somebody who comes in with no experience, or, they have education, but they have no practical experience. So just kind of cleaning it up and hopefully making it more enticing. We have interviews in the next week or so, and fortunately we've gotten some good quality candidates. So I don't feel like this detoured anybody who is highly qualified from applying.
Okay, there was one change though, I thought, look under education experience. It says 5 years of increasingly responsible experience, technology, including the development, installation, and maintenance preferred. I think if you leave out it makes better sense, including development, installation, and
Okay.
maintenance preferred.
Good point. And I had a question about, so it looks like the 2 years of college coursework is actually a requirement. It doesn't say preferred there.
It does at the end.
Mhm.
2 years.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. I'm sorry. I can't read.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, great.
okay,
Perfect.
all right. So I need a motion to approve this, please.
I move to approve the revised job description for technology specialist level K.
Do
I
have a
second.
Okay, I have a
Sorry.
motion and a second to approve the job description of the changes anyway of the technology special in the job description of that position. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think we got ayes from everybody.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Next on our agenda is are there any public comments regarding our closed session that we'll be going into?
There are not.
Okay, then at this time, the commission will